I'm Rachel Donovan, born and raised in the suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky, in a house so obsessively spotless it felt suffocating, like dust was the only thing that could damage our family's reputation. My mother, Eleanor, treated perfection like a religion, and anyone who didn't conform to her standards was deemed a failure. Unfortunately, that person was always me. I was the oldest, 4 years older than my sister Clarissa. From the time we were little, Clarissa was the picture-perfect child my mother bragged about to her friends at the golf club. Blue eyes, blonde hair, playing violin since she was 6, straight-A student, and the center of attention at every family gathering. And me? I learned to read early, won first prize in a school writing contest, and was once praised by the principal for helping a classmate with disability. But none of it mattered next to little angel Clarissa. A B plus? My mother glanced at my test paper, lips pressed into a thin line. Clarissa just turned in a 7-page advanced essay. In French. You think this is good enough? I gripped the edge of the table to stop myself from speaking back. When Clarissa got a new violin, I got a reminder to try harder to be worthy. When Clarissa made a mistake, Mom said, "She's just tired." But if I so much as left my muddy shoes on the floor, she'd scream straight into my face, "You are a burden to this house." My father, Richard, was a kind man, but always kept his distance from the storms between my mother and me. He was a mechanical engineer, often home late, and rarely got involved in anything at home. Once he pulled me aside, speaking gently. "Your mom just wants what's best for you, Rachel. She expects a lot because she knows you can do a lot." "Don't you see she only loves Clarissa?" I asked, eyes brimming with tears. He sighed, as if the answer was too complicated to put into words. "Just keep trying, things will get better." But they didn't. They just got worse. My childhood was made of lonely nights in my room, listening to Mom and Clarissa laughing downstairs at jokes I was never invited to hear, of parent-teacher meetings where Mom always started with, "The older one still hasn't caught up to her sister," of holidays where my gifts were clearance bin items while Clarissa got Broadway tickets. I used to think if I became truly excellent, my mother would finally look at me with pride the way she looked at my sister. At 16, I took 3 AP classes, worked part-time at the school library, and placed second in a statewide photography contest. When I brought home the trophy, she simply said, "Clarissa just got an interview invite for a Duke scholarship. This isn't the time to flaunt little things." I had grown used to being invisible, but every time she said something like that, a small piece of me quietly died inside. I wasn't rebellious. I didn't act out, I just slowly withdrew from the painting they called family. I kept my distance from Mom, only spoke when necessary. With Clarissa, I tried to be polite, even though resentment burned underneath. She never had to fight for attention, she just had to exist, and she was loved. At 18, during our backyard high school farewell party, everyone raised their glasses to toast Clarissa, even though I was the one who had graduated first. I stood in the corner of the yard, holding a glass of orange juice, and listened to my mother tell a neighbor, "Clarissa is the only thing I'm truly proud of. The older one, well, at least, she can take care of herself." That night, I packed a few belongings and drove away from the house I had never truly belonged to. I left Louisville at 18 with a suitcase of clothes, an old Nikon camera my dad secretly gave me for my 17th birthday, and a whispered sentence I never got to say to Clarissa: "You don't have to apologize. I don't need you to take the blame for Mom." I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get out if I wanted to breathe. I enrolled in a small community college in Bloomington, Indiana, where no one knew me as Eleanor Donovan's daughter. I worked every job I could find, waitress at night, darkroom assistant in the art department by day, and spent every free moment taking photos. The camera was the one place I could control the world. I chose the frame, I adjusted the light, I decided what was worth keeping. A complete contrast to my old life, where even my mother's frown felt like a silent command. During my second year, I signed up for a volunteer project to photograph a wildlife rescue shelter. I thought I'd just be snapping pictures of an injured owl or a baby deer separated from its mother. What I didn't expect was to meet Jude Harper, the man who made me believe for the first time that you didn't need a mother's approval to feel complete. Jude was 3 years older, studying environmental engineering, and wore mismatched shoelaces because life's never even. He wasn't like anyone I'd known. He didn't try to impress, didn't judge, didn't ask why I never went home for Thanksgiving. Jude talked about his mom, a widowed homemaker in Tennessee, with so much love in his eyes. I listened, and I envied him. But what surprised me even more was that he liked the raw, quiet photos I took with film. A wrinkled hand holding a teacup, a stray cat curled up by a mossy wooden door. "You see things most people miss," he told me once, when I sent over some prints for him to design the shelter's brochure. "Not everyone has that eye." I didn't reply. But that night I cried. We officially started dating when I turned 20, moving into a tiny studio apartment above a second-hand bookstore. Life wasn't fancy, but it was warm. We split instant noodle packs, utility bills, and the first cold rains of fall. Once, I had a terrible sore throat, and Jude jogged nearly a mile to get medicine when his scooter broke down halfway. 3 years later, just as I landed a part-time photography gig for a local magazine, Jude proposed in the woods, right where I'd taken the shot that got my name mentioned in an editorial meeting for the first time. The ring he used was an heirloom from his mother, simple and graceful, just like the love he gave me. I wrote home to share the news. My father replied with a single line, "I'm happy for you, truly." My mother? She mailed back my letter with a sticky note. "Marrying an engineer? So you're giving up grad school? Poor decision." We got married anyway, a small garden ceremony on a summer afternoon in Nashville. No 3-tier cake, no fancy dress, no Clarissa. But I cried when Jude's mom hugged me and said, "This family wouldn't be complete without you." A year later, we welcomed our first son, Noah, on a misty April morning. He had Jude's cool gray eyes and my childhood dimpled smile. Holding Noah in my arms for the first time, I suddenly understood why my mother once said, "Motherhood is a responsibility with no breaks." But I also made a promise. No matter what happens, my child will never have to beg for his mother's love the way I once did. He will be loved unconditionally. Not because he resembles someone, not because he's perfect, but simply because he is. Jude was deployed to Kuwait at the end of my 28th year as part of a civilian engineering support program for military units stationed there. He once reassured me, "It's not Afghanistan or a combat zone, babe. It's just logistics work. There's Wi-Fi. I'll have a private room and I'll call every day." And he did call every morning at 6:30 before Noah woke up and I got ready to head to the photo studio. We told each other everyday things, the kind most people wouldn't think mattered, but they were the only threads keeping us connected across the distance. In March, I got a phone call in the middle of the night, a stranger's voice, firm but gentle. "Ms. Donovan? This is Sergeant Albertson. I'm so sorry to inform you. There's been an explosion at the base. Your husband, Jude Harper, didn't make it." I couldn't cry, couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. I just sat still, on the kitchen floor in the dark, still holding the half-warmed cup of milk I'd been heating for Noah. The funeral was held at the National Cemetery in Nashville, the place Jude once joked about. "That place is beautiful, but I'm not booking a spot there anytime soon." I held Noah, just 4 years old then, beside the flag-draped coffin. He didn't understand why Daddy wouldn't wake up, why Mommy had gone so quiet. Every word of comfort turned to noise. The only thing I heard clearly was Jude's silence, a silence that would never end. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Hendersonville, close to Noah's school and near enough for me to take a full-time job at a private preschool. I put my freelance photography on hold, only taking weekend gigs if I had the energy. Living expenses were mostly covered by the military's death benefit support, but nothing could fill the hollow space inside me, or inside Noah. And just like I feared, my mother showed up. At first, it was gifts. A Lego set worth over $300 arrived from Eleanor, along with a card. "Noah deserves the best. Don't let him miss out just because he lost his father." Then came the bike, the smartwatch, the educational toys. Each gift carried a silent message. You're not enough for him. I knew what she meant. Clarissa was living in Franklin with her husband, a dentist, and their twins, Olivia and Sophia. My mother called them the picture-perfect American family. She hung their photos in the hallway, sent me piano class schedules for reference, and regularly repeated, "Shouldn't you enroll Noah in something?" Clarissa started the girls at 3. Every holiday, I had to listen to things like, "Sophia's already reading Harry Potter, what about Noah?" Or, "Olivia's been tying her shoes since she was 4, your boy still can't?" Ridiculous. Noah was the one who hugged me tightly every time I stared too long at Jude's photo. He didn't need to perform. His kindness spoke volumes. My dad, still the same, played peacemaker. He quietly slipped me cash on Noah's birthdays, called to check in when Eleanor wasn't around. I knew he felt guilty, but his silence during that Christmas party, when my mother scolded me in front of the whole family for dressing Noah in a coat that wasn't festive enough, told me he would never truly stand up for me. I kept quiet for Noah, because he loved his grandma, because I feared he'd lose everyone else in the family. But after one birthday night, as I was cleaning the kitchen littered with wrapping paper and cake crumbs, Noah asked in a small voice, "Mom, why did Grandma say Daddy wasn't as good as Aunt Clarissa's husband?" I froze. He was only 6, but that little heart already felt the difference, even if no one ever spelled it out. I pulled him close, kissed his hair, and whispered softly, "Your dad was the best man I've ever known. Not everyone sees that, but you remember this. Your dad was a hero." That night, I sat alone, staring at the dim light spilling from Noah's room, and for the first time since Jude passed, I wrote it all down. In my journal, I wrote, "If Mom keeps using love as a leash to control my son, I won't stay silent anymore." That morning started like any other. Noah, now 8 years old, was running excitedly around the house, clutching his red backpack, begging me to let him go to the skate park with some of his classmates. "Just for 1 hour, Mom. Mason and Mr. Alex are coming too." I glanced at the clock. There was still time to swing by the market for some vegetables and come back to edit the wedding shoot from the day before. "All right," I said, tightening the strap on his helmet under his chin. "But I'll be there at exactly 10 o'clock to pick you up. And don't take off your helmet, you hear me?" Noah nodded, kissed my cheek, and zoomed off on his favorite skateboard. I didn't know that would be the last time for weeks I'd see him standing upright. The call came at 10:17 a.m., just as I was adjusting the lighting in the studio. An unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. "Ms. Donovan," a woman's voice said urgently, "we're calling from the emergency room at Centennial Medical Center. Your son, Noah, was in a serious accident at the skate park. He's in critical condition." I dropped my camera. The world around me instantly warped, like someone had twisted the axis of reality. I don't remember how I got to my car, how many red lights I ran to get to the hospital. By the time I arrived, doctors had already taken Noah into emergency surgery. He had suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, a fractured pelvis, 3 broken ribs, and signs of pulmonary hemorrhage. "We're doing everything we can," the doctor said through a face shield, "but the first 48 hours are crucial." I sat frozen on the cold plastic chair outside the ICU, clutching a flimsy hospital blanket. Inside, my son lay still as stone, tangled in wires and tubes, a breathing machine lodged deep in his throat. His face was bruised purple, and half of his head had been shaved for surgery. I couldn't recognize the boy who used to snuggle into my arms every night, who used to jump with joy when I got his favorite oatmeal cookies just right. I didn't dare close my eyes. I was afraid that if I did, Noah would be gone. On the first day, I refused to eat, refused to go to the bathroom. I just stood like a statue next to his bed. Every time the heart monitor skipped even half a beat, my own heart shattered. The doctors urged me to rest, but I couldn't. I had lost Jude when I wasn't by his side. I wouldn't make that mistake again. In those first harrowing days, it was the people unrelated to us by blood who showed up. Amber, my coworker from the preschool, brought me a bag of clean clothes and a phone charger. Greg, my friend's ex-husband, brought me hot coffee every morning because he knew I couldn't leave. Even the bookstore owner near my place texted, "I cleaned out your fridge and took out the trash. Your home is safe." Meanwhile, my mother never showed up. Not a single call, not one message. I knew she had seen the news. Noah had always been the last source of comfort she loved to brag about to her friends. But when that child was on the verge of death, she chose silence. I called my dad. He sighed. "Your mother, she doesn't know how to handle this. She's busy planning Clarissa's 10-year vow renewal." I hung up, said nothing. This kind of pain had long since run out of tears. On the third night, Noah began to show slight response. A twitch of his finger, a faint glow on the EEG monitor. The doctor called it a hopeful sign. I held his hand, whispering softly, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. If you can hear me, fight, just like your dad did. You are Jude Harper's son. You are the last light I have left." In the heavy darkness of the ICU, those words were the only lifeline I could throw him, and I swore, if Noah woke up, I would never again let anyone, not even his grandmother, manipulate his life. Not ever again. On the afternoon of the fourth day in the ICU, as the last sunlight slid off the hospital room window, I was gently stroking the back of Noah's hand when the phone rang. The screen read, "Eleanor Donovan." I stared at that name for a few seconds, then brought the phone to my ear. "Hello?" My mother's voice came through, steady and emotionless. "Rachel, can you come home to help prepare Clarissa's birthday party? It starts tomorrow evening at 7, but the restaurant needs someone to go over the guest list and arrange the flowers. I can't do it all by myself." I thought I misheard. I looked at my son, Noah, still motionless among the machines, the IVs, and the steady sound of the ventilator ticking like a countdown. I gripped the phone tightly, trying to stay calm. "I can't leave the hospital. Noah is still in a coma, Mom. The doctors are taking care of him. You can come for a few hours. Clarissa was really hoping you'd be there. It's her 30th birthday, not just a regular day." I bit my lip, the back of my throat burning. "You're talking about birthday cake while your grandson is fighting for his life? I'm not asking you to abandon him. I'm just saying you can do both. Don't be so dramatic." Her voice shifted into that cold, familiar tone, the one that made me feel small and worthless my entire childhood. I shot up from my chair, quickly stepping into the hallway so I wouldn't disturb the other patients. "Noah has a brain injury. Little Clarissa can wait. No one dies if a party gets postponed, but my son has been unconscious for 4 days. Do you understand what that means?" There was silence on the other end. Then she said, like she was discussing business, "If you insist on being so distant, don't blame me for pulling Noah's education fund. I can't support a child whose mother doesn't know how to balance family and responsibility." That line hit me like a knife to the chest. I was used to her attacks. But threatening to rip away my son's future just because I wouldn't leave his bedside to blow up balloons for a party, that was the final straw. I took a deep breath, still clutching the phone. "You just declared you're willing to sacrifice your grandson's future to protect the perfect image of your youngest daughter's party? If that's the case, I don't need a single dollar from you." "Don't be disrespectful, Rachel. I'm your mother, and I have the right—" "No, you only have rights as long as I allow them." I cut her off, my voice shaking but firm. "Noah is my responsibility, and I'll raise him not with money that comes with strings attached, but with unconditional love. Something you never gave me." Hung up, didn't wait for a response. No regret. Back in the hospital room, I sat beside Noah's bed, pulled out my phone, opened the contact list. My finger hovered over the name Eleanor Donovan. Without a single second of hesitation, I pressed delete. It felt like removing a boulder that had been pressing on my chest for 33 years. I leaned back in the chair, gripping my son's hand, the child who couldn't speak, but who was the only reason I was still standing. Noah didn't need a wealthy but heartless grandmother. He needed a mother strong enough to sever a toxic bloodline, and I would be that mother. Until he woke up, I would be here. No parties, no flowers, no invitations from people who never once asked, "How's Noah doing?" Just me and him, and the belief that some birthdays can be rescheduled, but if you miss the most important moment in your child's life, there's no way to get that back. Noah moved his fingers on the morning of the 5th day. I was holding his hand, eyes bleary from barely sleeping, when I felt a faint twitch, so slight. I instantly sat up straight, holding my breath. A minute later, it happened again. This time, 2 fingers. I hit the call button for the nurse, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Just 10 minutes later, Dr. Kramer, the lead pediatric ICU doctor, was in the room. He checked Noah's eye reflexes, called his name several times. Noah, can you hear the doctor? If you can, blink once for me. We waited. 1 second, two. Then his right eye fluttered, his eyelid lifted slightly and blinked once, slowly. Tears spilled down my face immediately. The doctor nodded, unable to hide his relief. This is a good sign. The brain is responding. Your son is coming back. They kept Noah under close observation, still on the ventilator, but with each passing day, I saw more light returning to his eyes. When I told him little stories about the neighbor's dog or the time we got lost in the forest preserve last year, the corner of his mouth lifted ever so slightly, like he was trying to smile. I knew he was listening, and I knew that me staying, not even leaving for a minute, was the one thing anchoring Noah to this world. On the afternoon of the 7th day, the ICU door swung open. My mother, Eleanor, walked in as if she'd just come back from vacation, not visiting her grandson recovering from a brain injury. Behind her was Clarissa, wearing a blush pink silk dress, holding a gift bag with a gold ribbon. I immediately stepped in front of the door. Did you call the nurse? Why would I? She raised an eyebrow. We're family. This is an intensive care unit. No one enters without my or the doctor's approval. It's hospital policy. Clarissa stepped forward, her voice soft as usual. I just wanted to visit Noah for a bit. I brought him, your son, a rowboat building set. Thank you, I replied calmly. But right now, Noah can't handle any stimulation. The doctor has asked for minimal noise and no unfamiliar faces. You're calling Mom and me strangers? Clarissa blinked, looking genuinely hurt. I exhaled slowly. I'm talking about how Mom didn't send a single text or ask how he was for 5 days, and now, when my son finally wakes up, she shows up. For what? To see if I was wrong for not skipping the hospital to blow up balloons for Clarissa's birthday party? Eleanor crossed her arms, no longer hiding her anger. With that attitude, it's no wonder Noah is so weak. Kids need toughness. It felt like a slap. But this time, I didn't back down. My son is not weak. He survived brain surgery, broken bones, internal bleeding. He's stronger than anyone in this room, and you? If you can't say anything kind, then don't say anything at all. Clarissa tried to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. You can see Noah 5 minutes. No party talk, nothing that could upset him, and if I see the slightest sign of stress, this visit is over. They reluctantly nodded. I stepped aside to let them in. Noah opened his eyes when he heard Clarissa's voice, tired but responsive. His grandmother approached, placing her hand at the foot of the bed. Hello, sweetheart, she said, her tone softer than usual. You gave everyone quite the scare. Noah blinked. I wasn't sure how much he understood, but his gaze shifted to me the moment she finished speaking. A guarded look. Exactly 5 minutes later, I stepped in, firm but gentle. That's enough. Noah needs rest. My mother looked like she was about to protest, but after seeing my face, she simply adjusted her scarf and turned away. Before walking out, she looked back. You'll regret how you behaved today, Rachel. I responded with a cold smile. I used to regret staying silent for too long, but from now on, I won't be silent anymore. I locked the door behind them and returned to Noah's bedside. He had closed his eyes again, but his hand still clasped mine, slightly, but I could feel it. I leaned in and whispered, You won't have to endure conditional love like I did, Noah. I'll protect you, no matter what. In the hallway, the sound of heels faded. In the room, the monitor beeped steadily, the sound of life. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly at peace. 3 days after my mother left the hospital with that icy warning, I got a call from her old family lawyer. Mr. Peterson. Donovan, he began cautiously. I've been authorized to inform you that Miss Eleanor has officially withdrawn all financial support for you and your son, including Noah's education fund and any share in the family estate. I simply nodded, thanked him, and hung up. No tears, no shock. The only thing I felt was a lightness in my chest, like removing a rusty fish hook that had been embedded in my skin for years. I immediately reworked our entire budget. The expenses I used to think were manageable now had to be eliminated. Noah's evening STEM classes? I found a free program at the community center. Toys ordered through Amazon Prime, canceled. Our weekly takeout meals replaced with mom and son cooking nights using discounted brown rice and clearance vegetables. I took on a weekend job at a wedding photography studio, plus remote editing gigs for 2 former colleagues. I also enrolled in a night portrait course, hoping to upgrade my skills and eventually take on more freelance work. Every night after Noah went to bed, I sat in front of my computer, eyes stinging from fatigue, but my spirit brighter than ever. Every dollar I earned now came with no strings attached. No judgmental glares. No biting remarks like, "Without me, you two wouldn't survive." As for Noah, he was recovering little by little, like a seedling digging back into the soil after a storm. At first, it was a few shaky steps with a walker. Then he could sit up by himself, eat porridge with his left hand. His right was still weak. 1 month after the accident, he read an entire page of Spider-Man comics, even though he paused often to ask for help. "I forgot what gravity means," Noah asked, pointing to a panel where Peter Parker was falling from a skyscraper. "It's what pulls everything toward the ground," I said, "but sometimes people are strong enough to fly against it." He nodded like he understood more than I said. Larissa began texting again, not long, dramatic messages like before, just short ones. "How's Noah?" or "Need help with pickup?" I didn't fully trust her, but I didn't shut her out either. Once, she picked Noah up from physical therapy when I was stuck at the studio. She said nothing, brought him home on time, and even stopped for vanilla ice cream because the doctor said cold treats help a sore throat. For once, she wasn't playing the role of mom's flawless clone. She was just Clarissa, a woman who felt guilty and was trying to make amends. My mother, on the other hand, began sending expensive gifts by mail. No notes, no apologies, a giant Lego set, a brand new smartwatch, even a $200 ebook gift card. I left everything unopened, neatly stored in a box in the garage. I had promised myself, no one gets to buy Noah's love with presents. If she wanted forgiveness, she had to start with honest words. Something she had avoided her entire life. My father still called. Same sad tone, apologizing for my mom, dodging any real conversation. I no longer expected anything from him, but I still picked up because I knew he loved Noah. Even if there were boundaries he'd never cross. Noah sometimes asked about her. "Why doesn't Grandma come over anymore?" I didn't deflect. Because Grandma and I need time to understand each other better. But one thing's for sure, no matter who comes or goes, I'll always be here. He thought for a moment, then nodded. That simple statement told me everything. My son wasn't hurt by a lack of money or relatives. He just needed stability and genuine love. I sat by the window, watching Noah piece together an old robot kit. My boy didn't need more stuff. He just needed a mother who knew when to say no, even to Grandma. And if the price of that was giving up college funds, inheritance, or grand birthday parties, I'd choose it all over again, without regret. 1 year after the accident, Noah walked steadily into our tiny kitchen, wearing a charcoal gray hoodie and clutching the robot model he had designed himself. His hair was neatly trimmed, hanging slightly over his forehead, covering the thin scar that traced his left temple, the only reminder of those haunting ICU days. You sure you only want 6 people for your birthday? I asked, stirring a pot of hot chocolate. Yes, Mom. I don't want anyone pretending they're happy to be here, Noah replied, his tone calm and far older than his 9 years. In the living room, Amber was hanging up a handmade Happy Birthday Noah banner cut from recycled paper. Clarissa, who had come early with a cake from a local vegan bakery, was setting out paper plates with Mason, Noah's best friend since preschool, who had stuck by him through the worst. There was no sign of Eleanor, and not a single gift from her was allowed through our apartment door. After nearly 8 months of silence, my mother had sent one short message. If you want to rebuild this relationship, you need to start by apologizing. I read it, then deleted it. No response. Noah never asked about her again after I explained. Grandma needs to learn how to love people without trying to control them. He understood that lesson faster than I ever did. The small birthday party was warm and simple. No wine, no flashy guests, no pro photography. Just laughter echoing from our third-floor apartment, slightly overbaked homemade cookies, a few small boxes filled with books and robot parts, and one candle lighting the eyes of a child who had walked through fire and come out glowing. After everyone left, Noah sat beside me, hugging his knees, eyes deep in thought. Ma? Yes, sweetheart. If someday Grandma wants to see me, would you let her? I looked at my son. That scar was still there, but behind his eyes was a peace it had taken me decades to find. I won't stop you, I said gently. But I'll always tell you the truth about the past so you can make your own choice, with understanding and self-respect. If she still believes she did nothing wrong, then I don't need to try to make her happy. I stared at him, overcome with emotion. That's something it took me 30 years to learn, I whispered. You learned it before I did, and I'm prouder of you than you know. Noah rested his head on my shoulder. I think Dad would be proud too. Because you didn't give up, because you protected me, even when it meant standing up to your whole family. We sat like that, just the two of us, watching the city lights flicker through the window. I no longer felt empty when I thought about my old family. I no longer craved validation from people who only offered love as a transaction. Family, I had come to understand, is made up of those who choose to stay, not out of duty, not out of guilt, but out of love. Amber is family. Clarissa, with all her quiet efforts to make amends, is slowly becoming part of that circle. And Noah, the brave boy who once lay motionless beneath the hum of ventilators, is living proof that unconditional love can breathe life back into even the most broken soul. I'm still not wealthy. I still work 2 jobs and count every bill, but I've never felt more whole. When Noah finally dozed off on my shoulder, I gently laid him down, tucked a blanket over him, and sat in the quiet alone. Staring at his face, I thought, maybe sometimes losing what we thought we couldn't live without is how we finally find ourselves. And at the end of pain, if we're brave enough to end what harms us, what waits ahead isn't just survival, it's a life worth living. Today, I'm no longer the Rachel who bowed her head to judgment. I am a mother, a woman, and fully myself, complete, without needing anyone's permission. Rachel's story is a powerful reminder that not everyone who shares your blood deserves a place in your life. In real life, some relationships survive only because we keep enduring until the day we finally say, enough. When Rachel broke free from her mother's toxic control, she didn't just protect Noah's childhood, she freed herself from invisible chains. Sometimes real freedom begins with setting boundaries and holding them without regret. What do you think about Rachel's decision? Would you have the courage to do the same for your child? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and meaningful family stories.